Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. This is Mason from Nuun HQ. We have some special guests with us tonight to discuss motivation, goals, and commitment. Our intention with this education is to help lay a foundation for everyone's athletic success this year. So by discussing the motivation, goal setting, and commitment, we want to help everyone be able to reach those goals and have an awesome 2018 of chasing personal bests and living the Nuun life. So let's kick it off with some introductions. We've got Kevin Rutherford, who is the Nuun CEO, Chief Eternal Optimist. He's a runner, cyclist, swimmer, also known as a triathlete in some circles. And his current goals, for example, are chasing his best and potentially qualifying for 70.3 World Championships. Kevin, you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I think swimmer might be overstating it. I attempt not to drown and get through the swim. And I guess the other clarifying point would be the self-proclaimed chief eternal optimist. I don't know if Mason agrees.
Oh, I totally agree. I definitely agree. Very cool. And so next up, our additional special guest, Dr. Justin Ross. Justin Ross is a clinical psychologist specializing in sports performance. He's done interviews and writing for a ton of big magazines and newspapers, as well as some writing for Motive Running on their blog and some articles. He works with a number of professional athletes, as well as athletes of all ability levels, to help better understand the role of the mind in performance. He recently got his Boston Marathon qualification, or in 2016 he did that with a 3:03 marathon PR. And this year it sounds like he wants to beat that 3-hour mark in the marathon and really go for it. Anything to add there, Justin?
Yeah, no, I mean, happy to be here. Super excited to talk with everybody about, sports performance and how to think about using the mind as an asset and setting goals and being committed to sport. So
very cool. And so next up, Justin has his own practice called Mind Body Health out there in Denver, Colorado. Justin, you mind introducing your practice there for us real quick?
Yeah, sure. So we're a clinical psychology practice. We've been open for 10 years, and we really specialize in health and wellness related issues. We do a lot of mindfulness-based meditation for people, and we also do a lot of sports performance work. And so a lot of recreational athletes, a lot of people who have, day jobs trying to get after it and understand the role of the mind in terms of helping their performance. But then we also work with quite a few people on the world stage who are, really getting after it and are professionals in their sport. So it's a great gig. I love what I do. I love having the opportunity to connect with people and help them better understand the role of the mind in sport. So again, just excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And Justin is also a Nuun ambassador. So we are very thankful to have you as part of the Nooniverse.
Yeah, you too. It's been fun.
Awesome. Cool.
Hey, one quick comment. Sorry, I just noticed, I know I'm not supposed to be watching the chat box, but I noticed Mason, a comment come through. Justin, it was hard to hear you was a comment. So just make sure you're speaking kind of into it and loud enough. Just FYI, because we want everyone to hear every word you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. And if we need to, I can just, I can run in the other room here and grab some headphones. So if the problem continues, let me know.
Awesome. So just as an outline for today, we have a lot of awesome stuff to talk about. 3 main topics are motivation, goals, and commitment. We want everyone to be out there chasing their best and feel motivated and ready to tackle their goals. And yeah, we just want to help everyone to live the Nuun life. So we'll cover these topics. In between each topic, we'll look out for some questions. You can type those into the chat box. And additionally, at the end, we'll do a quick Q&A with any live answers we haven't gotten to. And if that rolls over past our time limit, we can have you follow up potentially on Twitter with Justin and Kevin. They're 2 active Twitter users, so you'll be able to follow up with them there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here. And we can just get right into it. So the first topic that we'll have Justin and Kevin talk about is motivation. So you guys can kind of have at it.
Yeah, well, where to start, right? I mean, that's such a broad topic. I mean, I think, maybe throw it to you, Kevin. Just curious, Mason was saying you've got kind of a big goal of trying to get to 70.3 worlds, and just wondering, like, what's your motivation for competing in sport and setting a big goal like that? Talk us through that.
Yeah. When it comes to the 70.3 worlds, I've done a few triathlons in the past. One full Ironman. I can't remember how many halves. Call it 6 or 7, somewhere in that range. And so I think what motivates me is really putting a stake in the sand of saying, what's the next goal that I want to go after, and kind of put that stake in the ground. And honestly, I just kind of arbitrarily challenged myself and the team actually at our all company meeting last year. Really rallied behind and said, yeah, that's what you should do. You should do a 70.3 worlds, like a qualifying for it. So I said, all right, I'm in. Let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
So it really was about putting a stake in the sand to see if I could reach a little higher and do a little better than what I've ever done before.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like, I mean, like, kind of pulling through some sports psychology skills. One of the main ideas there is like goals and motivation that's personally relevant, that's set from an internally driven force, it's critical to this sport, because the hours can be long, the commitment can be long, the work can be long. And if it's not personally meaningful for us, we have a tendency to maybe back down or slow down, or to push away training cycles. So, I mean, I think, again, like motivation, that's factor one. We call it the difference between internal and external motivating factors. And for everybody here to be thinking about that, there could be a lot of external factors that play into this, right? Like, my coach says I should do this. My friends say I should do this. Facebook says I should do this. And those are all great ideas. But if it doesn't come from within, it makes it really, really hard to want to get up and, hit the water at 5 a.m. for a bunch of yards.
I couldn't agree with you more. And there are many times at 5 a.m. where I'm like, oh boy.
Right. Yeah. I've been there myself many a time. I know that feeling. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, the other, when you talk about intrinsic and extrinsic factors, when I think of extrinsic and maybe an influence on me is, when I look at the Nuun team, it's a really active team. Everybody at Nuun moves. Everyone believes in the power of movement, and everyone's trying to push themselves to that next goal on a personal level when it comes to movement. And we're all at different levels. Some are an incredible elite cyclists to runners to triathletes to some people are working on their first hike. But everyone has that personal ambition. And so I think a little bit extrinsically for me is I want to lead by example, and I want both with our team and then with the ambassador group that's here is I want to lead by example to say, yes, you can. And you may feel like you can't because of time or other commitments, but if you prioritize it, yes, you can. And so there's a motivation for me from that perspective is to lead by example. Now, whether or not I succeed, that's a whole other question. Right. But to take on the initiative, that's definitely there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That idea of like being a model for community and being a model for the people around you to, one of my favorite sayings is like a rising tide floats all boats, right? So this like elevating the culture around you to go out and to chase big goals and to chase big dreams, and to do that by setting that example is, I think, fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I connect to that too. I think so. I have kids. I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I think a big part of this is not only chasing my own ambition, but showing the next generation the power of sport, right? Because it's not just about crossing the finish line. It's about setting that intention, setting those goals, and then working a disciplined plan to achieve those goals. And it extends way beyond that, right? And that feel good you get from achieving those goals, it rubs off on the people around you, your community, the people you care about, the people you love. So I think that's such a priceless part of sport.
You mentioned something about family, and I know we'll likely get into what keeps the motivation going and whatnot, but I feel like it's almost necessary to say, whatever goal you have, if you've got in my case, my wife, so my life partner is, you need them to buy into it. And without that, the odds of success are actually really low. So they need to really buy into and support you is where I'm going on that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think about that, like when we break this whole area down, I think about commitment, right? And it's, commitment has to be viewed in like a 360-degree fashion. And there's this idea, but a difference between what we call harmonious passion and obsessive passion. And as athletes, like I would consider myself passionate. I think everybody here is a passionate athlete, and yet it has to live in harmony with all these other parts of our lives. Has to live in harmony with our work life and with our family life and with our family's goals, right? And with other parts of our identity and with our friends. And if it doesn't, if it's obsessive to the point of detriment, harmonious and obsessive passion, right? If it's obsessive, where it's like a sole focus, it's where you get most of your identity and it's getting in the way of other parts of your life, then it starts to bleed into a problem area. So this idea of living with harmony is, it's so critical for long-term commitment and success with the sport, and for happy family members to go along for the ride with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a question for you as you're going through this, as we go through this together. Justin, is there a cap in terms of the number of goals that you can really have as an individual?
Well, I don't think there's a cap, but I think there's a consequence. And the way I think about it is I think about the word "and" as being so critical for that. So every time you stack a goal and you add another one, the word "and" goes in between it. So you could say, like Kevin, like this year I'm going to run 6 Ironman races. I'm just making this up, but I'm going to do this race and this race and this race and this race. Pretty soon you have a link in a chain. And now if you add other things onto that, and I'm going to PR 5 of the 6, and I'm going to qualify for Worlds, and this, the more ands you stack up, it's like a chain link fence. The harder it is to keep that thing tight and in a supportive way. So you have to be really careful about how many ands you throw in your goals. It's okay to go for big goals and to have them spread out throughout your life, but the more you have, the more precariousness you're going to have in trying to support that whole system.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah, and so what I see a lot of recreational athletes do is they want to do a lot of events throughout the year, and I think that's fantastic. That can be really fun. But the truth is, you can only really race a handful, right? You can't expect to race 5 marathons in the fall and do well at all of them. Maybe you can race one and enjoy the other ones as training runs or as events that you want to participate in. But it's having that strength of mind to say, I don't need to race everything. I can have a multitude of goals and I can be in events, but I'm going to have like one race, one thing that really is the goal focus in terms of performance.
That's a good point. I might actually be hurting myself on on a personal level, and so I'll give you a little detail on that, which might help the folks on the video call listening. Is I'm racing Oceanside in, I guess, 5 weeks. I think whatever that is, April 8th-ish, 7th, something like that. I also have Victoria after that in June, and I have Whistler in July. And unfortunately, by the way, none of those are going to help me achieve the goal that I actually want to get to, which is I want to qualify for Worlds, as I mentioned. The other sub goal underneath that, but they kind of go hand in hand, is under 5 hours for these races, the "and" comment said.
Right. Plural.
And by the way, I actually want to qualify for Worlds for the 2019 year. I don't actually want to do Worlds this fall. So none of those races should really be my A race, if you will, because they qualify for me for this fall. And I actually have no intention of doing Worlds this fall. It's the following year. So there's an and that I've already put in place. And then I feel like almost like the stakes continue to rise with each one, where the expectations, both myself and others that are having fun with this scenario of Oceanside and others, want to see me raise the bar. So,
Yeah. And so I think, okay, so, athletes, we love numbers, right? And so there's a lot of quantitative goals that we can get attached to, right? Like I'm going to go sub 5 or whatever it may be for each of these races, or whatever a race may be the target. But I think, the other way to balance that out is to have a lot of qualitative goals, right? So things like, I really want to focus these races on form and on transition and on posture and on using sports psychology skills to be successful in certain critical moments, through the swim or through the last few miles of the run where I know it's uncomfortable. So if you bring into it, like not every race has to be a quantifiable goal chase. There could be plenty of qualitative goals that people are working on throughout the season and throughout these events.
Yeah, I don't think I'm doing that very well.
Yeah.
I think I'm focused on under 5 hours, no matter what. And I think some people can appreciate this one too. Is I hope, or at least maybe they'll laugh at me, but I think as the training goes on, and right now is peak training for Oceanside, it's becoming like a chore. And I'm trying to figure out what the joy is that I'm getting through the process. So how do you get through that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Where have you found joy in the past with sport, with training?
Not in the swim.
Uh-huh.
I think the biggest joy that I have is actually when I get a chance to train with people.
Okay.
I didn't really think about it until you were just asking that. And I'm going, the biggest joy I've had is training with people who have become some of my best friends.
Yeah.
And I'm training mostly alone right
Yep.
now,
Cool.
like 99.7% alone.
So there, I think right there you answered your own question.
Yeah.
It's like, and especially in the doldrums of the training cycle, when it's getting hard. My cat, everybody say hello to my cat. Hi, cat.
It's about reconnecting to those aspects of joy that are there. I mean, they're there to begin with. And so finding a way to get back to community involvement or to get back with a training partner throughout your week is going to be, it's going to be a game changer. And especially in the areas that are the most difficult for you or the least joyous, right? So trying to find a friend to go to the pool with, or hop into like a master's class or something that surrounds yourself with other people, it's going to take the sting out of it. One of the kind of the biggest sports psychology skills that we talk about is, like we get better by changing our perception of effort. And when we're stuck in the pain cave and we're just by ourselves, we could just over focus on how long it is or how hard it is or how uncomfortable we are. One of the things we know that shifts that perception is by being around other people. And so that simple fix can go a long way and really get you through the next couple critical weeks.
That makes a ton of sense. For the record, I do masters when I can, but I travel a lot with my role as CEO of Nuun. So it sometimes is a challenge. But when I'm in Seattle, I do masters. And honestly, it makes swimming kind of fun. I can't believe I just said that.
That's on record too. I mean, that could be replayed in the future for you.
It's true, though. It is true.
Well, I mean, I think you might be able to find a triathlete or two while you're up in Boulder here for the next few days. There's a couple of them roaming around up there.
Yeah, I'm not fast enough for them.
Yeah, they're speedy up that way. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Where do we want to go next?
So if we feel like we're all, how do things look on motivation there? Any other topics you want to cover?
I mean, again, I think just for the audience out there, I think the biggest starting block, and really when I think about this whole process, it's understanding these foundational elements because they carry through the season, right? So Kevin's really referencing a good point here. We all hit kind of the doldrums of a training cycle, and going back to the underlying motivational factors for why this is important, for why it's personally meaningful, and for what it can provide to the ones around us in our community is something that's really important to clarify now for if it's base training period for a lot of people, so that they can access it again when times get tough. So being really clear about that is so critical.
Building on that, as I'm kind of thinking through motivation, one of the things that motivates me, this is really dorky. So, well, this part's not dorky, then it goes to dorky. The not so dorky part is one of the team did a brainstorm, the Nuun team, last all company meetings, it was last summer. We were all together. And then we put up on a board, it's like, Kevin's going to qualify for Worlds. It was basically talking about how you do personal goals. And so we used me as the example. As you can tell, I'm fine being the guinea pig of examples. And one of the things the team said is like, get a coach. So I did. And by the way, that was a great call. And my coach is fantastic. In some ways, I actually have several coaches, but one official coach. And so Kaino is my coach. And what she does on Training Peaks is she knows what my schedule is because I give her a heads up based on my travel. And she schedules, but she also knows the goal I'm trying to reach, so how to push me. And what I found is I've become addicted to red, yellow, green on the calendar. And I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, by the way. Like I might be becoming a little bit obsessive with it, but I'm like, I've got to get in and make this turn green,
Right.
Because I've got this scheduled today. And it drives me crazy when it's red.
Yeah.
And I won't delete anything, which I have the power to do it, I guess. But I will shift it into a different day if I'm like, the schedule isn't working in wherever city I'm in, as much as if I can do it. Otherwise, yeah. So my point here is the dorky part. Is this a good thing? Addicted to red, yellow, green?
Well, I think, okay, so it could go both ways, right? And so one of the things that's happening is it's a micro goal, right? So you have the bigger goal that's broken down into a weekly schedule. And one of the things that keeps you going is looking to achieve that box, right? By hitting the workout, making it green, not yellow or red. And so that could be really, really helpful. Now, the drawback is the potential for obsessiveness. So the idea here would be, and again, I'm making this up, but let's say you land in a city at 11 p.m. and you have a 1 hour run and you're dog tired and you feel so compelled to get that run in that you leave the airport and you go and you hit it and you run in a dangerous way when your body really could use the rest just to make it green. So that's where that fine line is between like harmonious and obsessive passion, right? And yet it's really important to think about, like, it could be a micro goal that's really helpful in terms of helping you stay on track and helping you get through the weeks that are challenging.
Good advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're just about at our transition over to the goals, which is perfect, which is what we've been chatting about. We've had a couple questions come in about dealing with those hard days, pushing through, getting back after a hard race. And I know that those are definitely huge topics of their own. Do you have some quick pointers on the motivation side before we transition over to the goals there, Justin?
Yeah, so the general takeaway, again, the end goal for sports performance from a sports psychology perspective is being able to change your perception of effort. And we know there's some levers that we can play with there to change the perception of effort. Again, from a motivation perspective, the more personally meaningful the goal is, doesn't even matter what the goal is itself, just that it's personally meaningful. The more meaningful it is, the more specific it is, the more likely you're going to tolerate discomfort in a moment where you really need to step up and go hard. So again, like, this motivation stuff is really, really critical. I know for me, when I got the idea of I wanted to qualify for Boston, that I got a coach, just like Kevin did. I went out, I got a coach, and that meant I had a lot of really hard days that were outside of my comfort zone. But because that goal was so personally relevant for me, I was willing to do the work and step in and be uncomfortable. And I think through that process, you start to realize just how strong you can be. Being in the red zone and being uncomfortable for 5, 10, 30, 60 minutes isn't going to break you, right? And you come out, if you stay in it, if you stay with the qualitative goal of I'm just going to stay in this hard effort, you come out being that much stronger. So again, like, I know motivation for some people can be like this kind of boring topic. Yeah. I've heard it all before, but this is why it's so important. Like, if you want to reach peak performance, you've got to have that thing buttoned down and really understood internally for why you're doing what you're doing.
Hey, just building on that, Justin, you made me think of micro goals almost within micro goals. So one of the tools that I've been using to train, maybe I'm not alone in this case. So it's Zwift, which is basically virtual gaming on a trainer, right?
Yeah.
Do you use Zwift at all?
I personally don't. I know a ton about it, though. I know people who do, for sure.
So here's what I think is interesting that correlates to what you just said. And there's different challenges happening all the time. And there's rarely a challenge that I don't try to go after because I know it will only last for a period of time. Mm-hmm. And so I'm willing to go to that red zone for me, and I'm going to freaking try everything I can to crush it.
Yeah.
Because I'm also thinking I'm going to have a chance to recover. So I'm going through my head going, okay, let's go. Hold it.
Right.
And it's just 2 more minutes.
Right.
And then I can recover.
Yeah.
So I think to your point, for me, I know it's going to hurt, but I'm okay with that. And I'm also okay with it because there's an end. You just got to make it to that.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much, oh man, there's so much good stuff about that, Kevin, because like the key word there is willingness, right? I have the willingness to go there, and you're doing a lot of sports psychology talk as you're doing it, right? I got this, go. Okay, it's only two minutes. I can do it. I know there's a recovery on the end of this. And you have the power of that social influence on the backside of it. So, all this research demonstrates that we work harder, we're willing to work harder in the context of other people. And if you've ever been on a treadmill at a gym and looked over and you're like, what's that person doing? And what's that person doing? I'm going to knock them down. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
I did this morning.
Yeah, there you go.
I was looking over at my teammate Kevin's treadmill and saying, why the heck am I not going faster than him?
Right. Better step it up here. Boom, boom, boom. For sure. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. That covers our motivation. So let's hop right into goals, and we'll just get it rolling with SMART goals. Everyone has heard about that. Let us know what that's all about.
Yeah. So, I mean, SMART goals are, this is, for what it's worth, this is kind of my least favorite way to talk about goals, but it's an important way to talk about goals. And there's a million blog posts about it. It's kind of everywhere, and you see it January 1st. Like, that's it. People are setting SMART goals. But the basic idea, just to cover it, is, we have to make our goals specific. We have to make them measurable. We have to make them relatively achievable for ourselves. They have to be relevant, personally relevant, and they have to be based on some kind of time measurement. And so whenever you think about doing anything sports related, you have to just make sure it kind of hits those criteria, right? You can't go out and say, like, I'm going to go run a 2-hour marathon, right? Because one, no human has ever done that. And two, I don't have any genetic gifts to even come close to that. So that's the part that I think is the most important here, is making sure that the goals you set they can be push goals, right? Goals that are stretch goals above maybe what you're at, but they're still achievable in a realistic way. Like, if I do enough work over this amount of time, I think that I can hit that goal, right? So thinking about breaking 5 in a 70.3 race is something Kevin may be chasing. I know for me, I'm going for a sub-3 marathon. That's definitely that's pushing it for me. That's going to require that I do the work now. So we need to make sure that SMART goals are like just stretch enough. If they're too easy, if I said, yeah, I want to go run a 4-hour marathon, that doesn't do anything for me anymore. That's not stretch enough, and I would likely blow off training and not do the work because it's too easy. So goals need to be just challenging enough to make them worthwhile.
I have to say, I've been guilty in not being consistent with my training in the past. And I think it's just that, is I didn't really have a specific goal. So, I kind of dedicated myself to the long training days, but during the week, life gets in the way, and I was hit or miss, many times miss. So not something I was proud of and felt good about, but I was just like, it is what it is. And this one, when it became much more specific about, no, I'm going to go under 5 hours, and that's not going to happen by accident.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to go to, qualify for the Worlds again. Same idea. It's not going to happen by accident. So the discipline is interesting. The discipline that I've had training for this season, if you will, is far greater than any other time I've ever trained.
Yeah.
Ever, like, from a endurance sport perspective, no question. By the way, it'll come later on on this one, because I can't wait to talk to you about this one, is why the heck do I still have self-doubt?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll get into that. That's a big one. That's a juicy topic. To go back, like, how do you, Kevin, connect and understand the discipline, the cycle? Like, if you had to boil that down to kind of 3 factors, what are those main factors that keep you so accountable this training cycle?
Well, maybe it's because I'm an extrovert, but I will vocally tell people what I'm going to do. I actually want to hold myself accountable, and therefore I kind of like the fact people hold me accountable to it. So I think that's a motivation for me, both internally, but those closest to me. And when I say closest to me, I spend a lot of time with the Nuun team, and they're part of that. So I think that's one factor that gets me going. I think I talked about the coach idea. I think those micro goals, like day by day checklist. I think that's where I think the red, yellow, green is. It's like check, and that's momentum. I have a philosophy in business and in life that mojo builds mojo. And so everyone has this mojo. And by the way, including businesses, the mojo's there, but they don't see it because they can only see the issues. And so find the win and rally around that and start building. And I think for me, that's what keeps me motivated, is like, I did it. And there's so many times, guys, I don't want to go work out. I truthfully, I don't. But I go back to the big picture, and I think about probably the third component is, will I regret it if I don't? And the answer is yes. So I put myself in a future state of how do I want to feel post the workout, and then I'm in.
Yeah, perfect. I love that last part, especially, right? This ability to draw on something, right? And there's two types of regret that human beings tend to have. There's regret for things that we did that didn't quite work out, and there's regret for not taking the opportunity or not taking the chance. And what we know about those two types of regret is the latter, the not doing something, is the one that just eats us up, right? If we go out and you do the work and you go 501, yeah, you're going to be disappointed, but you're going to be, wow, man, I really put in the effort. I really did the work to get there. Versus if you look back and say, yeah, I missed 50% of my training workouts and I just didn't put in the effort. It's the not doing that really eats at us with the regret. So again, to go back to that, when it's 500 hours and it's dark and it's cold and your bed is warm, you have to have some type of internal structure to draw upon to get you to the pool, to get you in your running shoes, to get you on your trainer so that you can do the work. And again, it's like finding those factors, right? Accountability to self, accountability to community, having really crisp, clear, meaningful goals. That stuff is just so indelible. It's so important.
An example for folks, last night, I arrived in Boulder and had an early dinner. We were meeting with Kara Goucher, as I was talking about earlier in the call with a few folks, with Kara's picture back here behind me, her and her husband, Adam, and a few other folks here, teammates, Kevin and Shanna. And the reason why I bring that up is I kind of made myself accountable at dinner, because I said, guys, so I like no alcohol. I'm not gonna have a drink. I ate really light, had a salad, and the question for them is like, wait, so what's going on? I'm like, I'm gonna go swim after dinner, and they go, seriously, you're gonna do that? And these guys are, by the way, Olympians, world-class athletes. But I think they were looking like you're gonna swim after dinner, and I go, yeah, it's the only time I could fit it in, and I committed to myself that I was gonna do it. And I was in the moment for dinner. I just was like, this is what'll set me up for success when I leave. And so I knew by doing that, I basically put that out there, that they're in some kind of way, they're holding me accountable in my own mind as well. Yeah. You better go get your damn swim in after this.
Right. That's a really important thing too, making your goals explicit to your community, whether that's your family or your work. Or so for me, I own a business, and if I run at lunch, when I get in that day, I'm like, hey guys, how you doing? Everybody good? Who needs something? What do you need? I got you. I'm going to be gone from 12 to 1 today. Okay. I've got a run to do. I'll be back, but I'm unavailable then. Right. And then everybody's like, oh, okay. Like, how's your run? Or you getting ready to go? Same thing at home with my family, right? I've got 2 hours on the books Saturday morning. I'm going to be gone from A time to B time. And you make it known. And the people around you that support you and understand you are going to, help you with that accountability. So just those little, drops of what you're doing to other people is a nice way to stay accountable.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Where shall we go next? Where would you like to go next?
I've got a couple questions we can throw in real quick.
Yeah.
So in terms of setting goals, how do A, B, and C goals potentially type of thing fit into the goal creating process?
Yeah, I think it's a really nice formulation for doing goal setting. It's a really nice way to set up a season. And again, it goes back to that, that idea of and. Your goals for the season can't all be A goals, right? You have one A goal, and then you could have a bunch of other goals, right? And the goals can stack together, right? So for me, I'm running a June marathon and an April half, and maybe a May half as well. But that goal is like a micro goal on the way there. I don't need to go out and have the best day of my life, but there are some things I'm looking to do and achieve to let me know that I'm kind of setting myself up in the right way. And I think goals that stack together like that are really, really helpful. So you can build a season around an A goal and then have events that help support you get there. And again, there's nothing wrong with having events on the calendar that are just for fun. I mean, it's super fun to be a part of this community and to go to events and to be there with other people. And like the spirit at these races is one of the things I value most. We just don't get this in other places in life. And so it's okay to do that. And it's okay to go out and do a race, but keep it really easy. Have it be just a regular training run. You don't need to blow yourself up, keep your heart rate down, get some physiological adaptations from it, and just make it a fun event. It's okay.
Kevin, do you have any of those fun races coming up? Maybe on Sunday?
Hot chocolate? Yeah, hot chocolate, I've all of a sudden put pressure on myself. I'm like totally declaring all kinds of stupid stuff. Boy, oh boy, am I getting myself in trouble. You guys are going to harass me. So I've never won my age group in my life until last year, hot chocolate race in Seattle. I don't know if there's 12,000 people. Is that right? Something like that. So this true story. I signed up for the race 2 days beforehand, and I go, all right, yeah, I'm doing it. That sounds like fun. I'll do it with the team. And I was with a couple of teammates, Lisa and somebody else, and we were kind of walking in the middle of the pack corral. And I go, Lisa's like, just go, go. And I go, oh, okay, I'll go see if I can catch a couple teammates. Well, needless to say, guys, here's the long story short. I don't know how it happened, but I just basically kept on trying to catch one of the guys on our team, Dave Swoosh, which never happened, by the way. And I kept on chasing. I ended up winning my age group, which has never happened in my life. So now I'm going into this year, Mason. I don't know if I'm going for fun or if now I'm like, now I got to go win my age group again.
You've got a title to defend now.
Yeah, exactly. So that's part of the reason why I'm going back to do it. I'm like, I got to see if I can do this again.
Yeah. That's awesome. Mm-hmm.
And I've got another question for you. You spoke about your ABC goals and then also micro goals. How might one optimize their rest days in a goal, like approach their rest days in a goal type fashion?
Yeah. So, I mean, rest days are so important. And I think there's been a great rise, especially on social, with this like rest day brags movement, right? Which is really cool because I think, again, as athletes, we get so attached to numbers and number chasing that, we feel like we have to run these streaks, consecutive streaks, or we have to hit certain mileage in a week or else. And what we do is we end up serving the mind and not serving the body. And the reminder is physiological adaptations occur during rest and recovery. And so it has to be a critical part of any training plan. And so, I know like Tracksmith is kind of this up and coming brand. They had this big thing of no days off, right? And what they had to defend themselves because they meant, no, it's not, you don't ever take a day off. That rest and recovery are part of the plan. It's part of the process of getting better. And so I think about that a lot, right? Rest and recovery is really, really critical. And you can take note of how that, how that factors into a goal cycle to say this month, this micro goal, I'm taking 4 days off and it's going to look like this. And here's what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to think about training and I'm going to use that to my benefit.
Yeah.
And so we've got one more question here. You mentioned earlier the subject of being extroverted, sharing those goals with others. For those of us who might be like introverts, do those goals get internalized? How do we put those out there? Maybe what's a good method?
Good question.
That is a good question. Again, I think it's about that accountability factor. And if you just commit to it wholeheartedly for yourself, you don't need to tell anybody, right? You don't have to put it on social. You don't have to go and tell all your family and friends what you're doing. But if you make it just really personally meaningful, and you hold that true in your mind, you're going to be more likely to do the work. So again, there's my Ridgeback. We got pets everywhere here.
All kinds of friends. Love it.
Right. Again, if it's like I'm committed to doing this 2-hour run on Saturday, and here's what I'm going to do it, and you just make that like a Loctite thought in your mind, that's how you get through that process.
Very good. And this last question will just transition us right over to commitment. And it has to do with goals and goal setting over longer periods of time, these long training cycles, 14 and longer week training cycles. So if you're able to answer that as we move over to commitment, let's just kick that right off.
Yeah. Again, I mean, it makes me, so there's a great quote, Tony Robbins of all people, Tony Robbins, crazy. He has this great idea. Like, most people underestimate what they can do in a lifetime, but overestimate what they can do in a year. And I think about that a lot with endurance sports, right? That, I see a lot of people burn out because they try to cram way too much into one year, right? They try to go too hard, too often for too many races, and they end up not enjoying the sport. And so again, I think often it can say, yeah, you can do a lot of events, but think about this over a longer trajectory of time, right? Not even just like a 4-month block, but like over the next couple of years. What are some of the goals you have? I know, like, for me personally, my big goal is to run the World Marathon Majors, right? So Boston, Chicago, New York, Tokyo, London, and Berlin. So that's going to take some time, right? And about halfway there. And that's it. Like, that's a long-term plan that's going to help me do the work to stay committed and also injury-free. So I think about like using that, like having people think more about longer-term plans, longer-term goals as a way to kind of stay on top of things.
Great. Yeah, let's get the commitment rolling and talk about what should we commit to in order to reach our goals, including like putting the work in and training, our devotions, our loyalties, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So commitment to process above all else, and it's all process, right? It's a daily work, and it's not just the training. And I think, like, to be successful in the sport, it's committing to, again, like the 360-degree perspective on this, making sure you're taking care of your body on rest days, making sure that you've got a diet and nutrition plan that's helping you and not harming you, making sure you're taking care of like stretching, foam rolling, strength training, making sure you're committed to doing some of this mental skills work, because that's really important, and making sure that you're attending to other parts of your life, right? So committing to the whole process is a really important part to making sure that you're reaching your goals. And then it's just like, it's, again, micro goals, one day at a time. What do I got tomorrow? What's on the schedule? What do I need to make that happen? Let me go out and execute that. And then repeat, right? Doing that each and every day.
I like where you went on process. I think that, that commitment to the process. One of the challenges I think many of us have is there's the long period of time of training, and then there's life that goes around it. So, those life can be the hiccup, speed bumps that you're unexpecting or expecting. And so in order to make some decisions on a daily basis, if you will, or weekly basis of where do I need to prioritize, use, the example when I did the swim last night, that's also because I didn't get it done first thing in the morning because I was flying out a little bit earlier, but I did a late training day the day before and I was just beat up. So I just decided I'm going to take the recovery, but I'm going to commit to swimming that night. So here's where I'm going is I wanted to get your perspective on this. The way I tend to look at it is I'm going, you can't do everything really well, right? Like you just can't. So you've got to figure out your priorities. And so for me, my priority is one, family, right? So that's what I need. If push comes to shove, I'm going to make the decision in a situation that if I've got to make a choice, which you may or may not, it might not be a zero-sum game in some scenarios. but I'll choose family. 2, I'll pick Nuun. And 3, I'll pick my training and my fitness, and in that order. And I think that helps me when it comes down to a situation where it's like, oh, crap, how am I going to do all this? Right. So if something I need to do with Mason and the team at Nuun, that's going to win over training anytime. Even if I had planned, I was going to go get that hour run at lunch. It's like, but this is critical. I'm going to drop the run. That doesn't mean I'm not committed to the run. I'll try to find another way to do it. But if I have to make a choice, do you have a perspective on that?
Yeah. I mean, so flexibility is so critical, right? And again, it's like, so one, being really crisp and clear about your value set, right? Because what I hear you talk about, those are your values, right? 1 is family comes first. 2 is Nuun, making sure everybody's taken care of and the work there is going well. And then 3 is my training. And so all are important and they have to coexist.
Yep.
Which means there has to maybe be some juggling and some flexibility that occurs. So that's really, really important. You know, another one of my favorite sayings is, everything you say yes to means you're saying no to something else. So last night, for you to say yes to that swim at 9 p.m. or whatever it was, meant you were saying no to some alcoholic beverages with 2 world-class athletes, right? And that was your commitment, right? And your trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how life works. And so for people to run through that paradigm to say, what am I saying yes to right now? It's happy hour. Maybe I've had a beverage. Am I going to have another one? That means I'm maybe saying no to a quality workout later tonight or tomorrow. And so that, within that framework of a flexible understanding of your value set, what matters most, right? And so for me, I think mine personally, or I have 4, right? So it's strong mind, strong body, strong business, strong family. And there's not, one doesn't outweigh the other. Like they all coexist and they're all equally important, and they all require this flexible approach to work with.
I'm making a note on that one. I like that. That was well said. Okay. Man, we got to get into the self-doubt at some point here.
Oh yeah. Let's get there. Can we go there, Mason? Is that cool? Can we drive our train?
Yeah, we can direct that train toward the self-doubt. Let's work that into some discussion on barriers. How about some barriers?
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to this, because commitment and barriers go hand in hand, right? So there's a little exercise I do. So for people listening, if they and we can send a worksheet to people if they want to check this out. But if they could draw like a box that's broken vertically down the midline and horizontally down the midline, creating 4 different boxes. On the top, I want people to write this idea of locus, or like where it's occurring. So on the left side is internal, so something occurring internally. On the right side is external, something occurring outside of us, okay? On the other side here, on the y-axis, we're going to talk about time perspective. So the top box we're going to call like pre-existing, and the bottom box we're going to call acute or spontaneous. And so what we do is then we set up this 4-quadrant idea of what our potential barriers are going to be. And so that upper left-hand box, kind of internal pre-existing things, these are things we know really well about ourselves. This is where self-doubt is going to fall. Right? I have these pre-existing ideas, these pre-existing beliefs, these pre-existing attitudes, these pre-existing commitments that are a big part of my life. And we all have them, right? And so, but it's about understanding that. If you go to the other side, kind of the external pre-existing, these are things like, for me, like my family. I've got family commitments. I've got little kids. They have a schedule to maintain. They have a routine. I know what that's like. I know what my work schedule is like. I know what these external commitments are that are outside of me, right? And we all have that. So putting that down. If you go down to like the acute side of things, on the internal side, it's things like injury or illness. You know, it all happens. We have to be flexible around that. Or we have critical things that we have to attend to within our personal lives. And then if you flip that on the external side, it's like we have critical things that happen with our family suddenly. Right? Like my daughter was in the hospital last year for a little while. So that was an external thing. The other big part on the right column is what I call climate and weather. So climate is pre-existing. You have a general idea of what your winter is going to look like, and yet you have weather, right? So if we're out here, Kevin's enjoying beautiful couple of Colorado February days, sunny, 50, it's perfect, right? But next week we could get 4 feet of snow. And so then you have to be flexible around that. The reason I bring this up is, again, if people just plot out a couple of ideas in each, you start to see what your biggest barriers to your own commitment are going to be. And then now you have a chance. Now you have some ability to work through that and to deal with it. The biggest, again, based on my profession, the biggest block that I see is that upper left-hand quadrant, that idea of like psychology, beliefs, self-doubt, confidence, whatever it may be.
All right. I'm going to see if I can get Justin's help here.
Yeah.
Hopefully other people have this issue. I'm not alone in this world, or at least this Nuun world. So let me give you the situation, whether it's right now, but even in any race, I go in with a lot of self-doubt. So as an example, I told you that my training right now, I am more prepared for Oceanside, and there's 5 weeks to go, than I think I have been for any race. I am now starting to have this question going, are you really ready? I don't know about this.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating to me. So when I start a triathlon race, one thing worth noting for everybody is there's a history of not being a very good swimmer. I joke, and I have come a long way, truthfully. But I will tell you, my very first 70.3 Ironman race was Oceanside. And what you probably don't know is I did the swim so poorly on that, where I couldn't breathe, and I had to do literally the backstroke the entire way. I just could not do it. I tried and I tried and I tried, and I couldn't breathe. It's embarrassing as hell, but I got through it, and I couldn't wait to get on the bike. And then I went like a bat out of hell. So there's that. Fast forward, 6-7 years, whatever it is, somewhere around there. Now I've done several since, but I've never gone into a swim except one exception, which is also a funny story, but that's another topic. Never did I go into a swim with confidence. So I'm a bundle of nerves. I've got a lot of doubt leading up to it. In fact, I'm probably hoping I get injured or something so I don't have to do it. Maybe I'm still hoping that. I don't know. So how do I get my mind control and get my self-confidence up?
Yeah.
By the way, I just banged out over 3,000 yards last night at 9:00 at night. So right. I can do this.
Right. So, okay. So the first question always back is, where does self-doubt come from?
Well, in my head, I guess. Is that what you're saying? Or maybe past experience? Is that where you're going?
Well, I don't know where I'm going. I mean, I think that's the question is how do you understand where the self-doubt started? I mean, because you give some really good ideas, right? It could be that race. It could be having a poor performance and maybe some anxiety about being in the water. So self-doubt could have started there.
Yes and yes.
Okay. It could be about your own thoughts about your performance and how it may be perceived either by yourself or by others, particularly in the swim.
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. Okay. And I mean, it could be, throwing a healthy sprinkle of just general anxiety and excitement that occurs before any big race anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So what do you do with the self-doubt now? How do you deal with it? How do you manage it? How do you work with it?
So, one of the things that I tried to do is develop a routine. And I actually haven't been doing it since I've been training, which is really interesting because I used to do it ritually. I would dunk myself under the water, breathe out, come up, and do it 3 times. Mm-hmm. And in my head, I was like, I'm just going to do it every single time.
Okay.
And I think that routine gave me confidence to say, it's going to be all right. You can breathe. You can do this. That's, to put in perspective, people listen to pump up music when, they're about to race. I listen to Bob Marley. I want to hit my calm.
Don't worry. Yeah.
Yeah. I sing it to myself actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to get myself in a calming scenario versus I'm going to crush the swim. I'm going to make it through the swim, which is also something I'd like to change. I'd like to be in the top third.
Yep. So, okay. So a lot of ideas there. So routine can be really, really helpful, right? Having something that you go to. One of the things that, and this may sound kind of paradoxical, but one of the things I actually encourage people not to do is your job is not to relax before a race. And here's why. So anxiety is an arousal emotion, right? It kicks up the sympathetic part of our nervous system. It's a preparation for us to respond to something, right? Whether that's a threat or an action need. Relaxation or being calm is the complete opposite of an arousal emotion. So what we want to do instead is get you to a place of fostering excitement, right? Excitement is an arousal emotion that takes away the negative connotations of anxiety, right? So that anxiety, it is a sign of getting your body ready, but there's all this negative doubt and thinking that goes with it. Excitement is a much better place to go to, and it's a much better place that you can actively foster within yourself, right? One of the ways to do that, there's this cliche saying of fake it till you make it, right? Just baloney. It's garbage. I hate it. I don't like that idea at all. What works better is this idea of acting as if, right? And so here's the idea of generating excitement to act as if you're a confident swimmer, you're a confident triathlete, as if you've mastered all of these training cycles and you've hit your yardage, right? So when you go into it and you develop this sense of like, how would a confident swimmer act in this moment? How would I, as a confident swimmer, act right now? Let me act as if that is that person. And so there's a couple things that happen. One, you change your mindset. So your thinking immediately goes to something positive, right? I got this. I trust the specifics of my training. I know that I can do this. I've been here before. Two, you get your posture is really, really important in that moment. So when we get nervous, we can tend to collapse a little bit, fall forward. We collapse our lungs. We don't breathe as deeply. We don't get as much oxygen. So standing back, shoulders back, tall, in a confident posture, that will communicate to the body that we're in a state of trust and excitement and relaxation. And then not relaxation, excitement, then pair our breathing with that to work on taking nice, even, slow, rhythmic breaths that connect all of those components. We're in the sand before a race and we're keyed up, we're ready to go, but we're not dreading performance. We're ready to get after it. That's a much better place to be. And that works in the sand at a triathlon. That works at the starting line of any distance of any type of event.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think those little anxiety and self-doubt hits me even on the run, and arguably the run is my strength. But it happens every race, truly. Like, I'm like, oh boy, am I going to be able to do this? Same thing. Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways, that's why we do this stuff, right? Humans are designed to push limits. And I think no better place for us to do that is in endurance sports, right? Or in being outside and, just finding out what we're made of. And the only way we get to do that, we don't get to do that when we're going for a leisurely walk, right? We get to do that when we really look at something that's just a little bit outside our comfort zone, and we make the work to challenge ourselves and go for it.
Yeah, good advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think that is like a very awesome place. I think we've reached some cool conclusions here. Self-doubt is extinguished, right, Kevin?
Let's do this thing. Here we go.
Hey, you've got a title to go defend this weekend. I want to hear about how this hot chocolate goes down.
Oh boy, I just put myself out there again. I'm not that bright.
Cool. So one thing, just to tie everything off, Justin, can you talk about the successful path, how motivation, goals, commit, all linked together for success? And then we'll do like a couple questions, and then we'll sign off here.
Yeah, sure. So I think, again, from a foundation, and I really think, so, when I build kind of like a sports psychology platform for people, this first layer, the foundational layer, is motivation, goals, and commitment. And then we build up to higher order sports psychology skills. And then we think about the top of the pyramid is learning how to execute when it counts. So the path forward, this idea of building a successful plan, understanding what motivates you, having a smart set of goals, right? Understanding what your commitment is and what your barriers are to that commitment, and then expecting success in every single thing you do. So that means, trusting the process, working the process, And when you come back from any type of training, just a little mental note of that really helped me, and here's how, right? So that's like this little linkage of things that are really, really key at this part of kind of the sports psychology paradigm.
Yeah. And so you had mentioned that, yeah, some of those down the line topics are the bouncing back from injury, the overtraining, coming back after a hard race performance. Any quick tips on keeping your head up there?
Yeah, man, that stuff's tough. I mean, there are books written about the psychology of injury, because that is a tough nut to crack. It's really, really powerful for people. And so, I mean, there's no quick one hits on that. I think that's deep work and, potentially conversations for another day.
Awesome. So that gives us a great opportunity for listeners to follow up with Justin on Twitter, Justin and Kevin. So Justin, what is your Twitter for people to find you on?
Yeah, so it's Psych Denver. So PSYCH and then Denver, DENVER.
Awesome. And Kevin, yours?
Mine is Clean Lantern. That's clean_lantern.
Very cool. Oh, and Justin, one final question for you.
Yeah.
Some good sports psychology books. We had the question there.
Yeah, so there's a couple. I mean, there's great books that are out there. So Alex Hutchinson has just published a book. It just came out this month called Endure, and it's fantastic. He's a brilliant writer. He's one of two people Nike let in to follow the Sub-2 marathon project. The book's really, really, really great. I recommend everybody check that out. Matt Fitzgerald, who's also kind of a well-known journalist in the sports performance world, has written a book called How Bad Do You Want It? And that book is, it's a couple years old. And I think those are maybe the top two for people to go to and access.
Yeah, if I learned anything from you today, it's not to pick up a ton of books at once. It's find some A goal books, B goal books.
That's right. Don't link too many ands between books here. Yeah.
Very cool. So with that, thank you everyone for joining us. I think this has been a super good learning opportunity for all of us as well as Kevin. Any final sign-offs from you, Kevin?
No, hey Mason, thanks for organizing this. Really appreciate it. Justin, thank you for sharing your big brain. And for any ambassadors that are still on, I just wanted to give you guys a big shout out. Thanks to you, our mission becomes closer and closer to reality of inspiring everyone to move more. Truly, like the ambassador group of Nuun is just so powerful. So thanks for everything you guys do. This is fun. I'm going to try to get that, I will get that confidence up. Here we go.
Go get it.
Thank you so much, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Cheers.